So we are back for the Albert Bartlett, one of my favourite races at the Cheltenham Festival. Thankfully, now it's getting a better press after what a great race it was last year. There's always good value to get in here. I think last year, obviously, was the fancied horses that ran well in there. This year, at the stage that we're at, we've got 16-1 in the field, and that horse is already confirmed to go for the Ballymore. So it's 20-1 bar. There's going to be some value in the race to find. I think the fact that it's the prices that it is just shows that there isn't that one standout performer. That the actual class horse that we've been getting used to in the last few years might not be there. But I go back to my old faithful. People talk that they want like older horses that are really battle hard and they want second season novices. I think that's a load of pish. I think you want something that shows some 2 mile speed, but might not be quite top grade at 2 miles, that then also has the stamina to get away with it. It worked out nicely with something like Penhill. Penhill was ex-flat, wasn't he? So with that said, there isn't even really anyone that ticks the boxes for me at this moment that I would look at a big price that I would like. But you got to mention earlier, Matt, if he does come over, I mean, Jamie's not on, sadly, but he won't give us any abuse for it. For Route de Land, looks semi-obvious, doesn't he? The Fury Road route he's going down. I know he jumped right, but he'd have a chance, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I still like him, David. I had him down from the start of the season as one with a good attitude and as a stayer. He got back up to beat Fire Attack in that bumper, and from then I thought when he steps up in trip over hurdles, he's one to keep an eye on. The jumping right in the Monksfield was a massive concern and put me off him for a while. But he still finished fourth there, even with an absolute carnage round jumping right. And he would just jump much, much better the next time out, back over 2 mile 7. And I just think jumping right thing might be overblown now when he's proved that he can jump straight and jump much better. And I just think going around Cheltenham with the extra stamina test just going to be right up his street, and I ain't giving up on him. 25-1, I think, still pretty big for Nelly at Gigginstown. Horse going down the same route as Fury Road. Yeah, I think he's a decent one.
Yeah, I think so. I think the closer it's getting to now, the more people dig at him. Just wondering whether they're leaving that price dangling because they might not be going to Cheltenham with him. And that's why the cash out with Betfair, whatever, if you're going to be thinking about doing it, that's the point of that, isn't it? Statler, I mentioned on the ante-up, I put him up, didn't I? I think that he's got a bit of a squeak, thought he was too good a price. But I'm actually quite keen to hear what you make of the race, Darryl. Is there anything that's been running in these novice hurdles or anything that probably is in that list that you think could shape into a nice 3 mile novice?
Well, I was hoping that Escalane would go this way, to be honest. I thought everyone was backing him over 2 miles when really he was all about stamina and he was all about going over 3 miles. But whether or not he's going to come here is a different matter. I'm not entirely sure. The other one I do like is Holy Macapony. I'm happy to forgive his Navan run where he pulled up. He clearly couldn't have been right there, but I think he beat a really decent horse in Gillard de Mencel, who I mentioned earlier for the Ballymore and etc. I think he's quite a talented horse. I don't know what happened at Navan. I've not heard what happened, but he tired very quickly and he stopped almost immediately. So I think you can put a line through that. He's 33-1. He's with the same owners as Manila Indo. I thought this was the way he would go. He's a point-to-point winner by 7 lengths. I think he's a really nice horse. I really do think he's a nice horse. And I think the fact that just because he pulled up quickly, there must have been something amiss that day. And I think 33-1 on him, I think, is far too big. So I think the Bromhead's Holy Macapony is one I'm quite keen on. I need to see him run again, but I might be tempted just to take a little bit of that 33-1 and then see him run again and just take the chance. But there's a lot of Gigginstown's horses in here that are quite interesting. Fire Attack, Farouk Delaine, Baptism of Fire. It's still a wide open race, of course it is. But Holy Macapony is one of the ones that is seriously on my radar for this at the moment, and Escalane. But I couldn't tell. I could only you know as much as I do about who's going where, etc. So it's a tricky one at the moment.
It is, isn't it? And it's hard as well because it is like I can't remember it at this stage being so wide open without me having like a real strong opinion or anything. Escalane was definitely worth a mention because me and Matt were talking about him earlier in the season as well. And you were right to say that they're running over the wrong trip. He he would still interest me. There's obviously chance of entries. He's a massive price, isn't he? This Holy Macapony as well. We talk about it before, haven't we, about timing of backing stuff. Before this ran in that race, he was smashed up because they obviously fabbed for that race. Everyone expected him to go well. Then obviously there was clearly something amiss with him, like you've touched on. He's now gone out to a 33-1 price. Depending on like injuries and all that sort of stuff, if you see him again, you're doing the right thing. You take a little poke at that 33s, because if he fulfills the promise that he's shown before, he goes back down to being an 8-1 poke, doesn't he? And if he doesn't, he's not going to go much bigger than 33. So that he's probably one to not, like, I think, to forgive that run. Fakir of Gordon Elliott's was interesting. There's one, I can't even remember how to say its name, like Irresistible or something like that, that ran behind something.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's it. And it, like everyone was saying, it's an eye catcher staying on. It's not even quite for the Albert Bartlett. Where it's going to go, I don't know. But that's one that I'd be interested in seeing if that steps up a bit. We've got a nice race coming up before the festival anyway that will give us a few more clues towards it. It definitely looks like one of these races this year that it's hard to look at any solid form from what's happened so far and have a confident case with stuff. Ashtail Bob obviously won that race, didn't he? So he potentially could look a big price nearer the time, but I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens coming up over the next couple of weeks, I think. But I don't think anyone's really missing anything in the Albert Bartlett market. Sometimes we'll look at it this far out, there'll be like 20-1 bar and there'll be some value to be found in there. I'm just not sure there's too much to be going at. I think we could be clutching at straws for 5 or 10 of the horses. And as much as I like spreading my darts across a few of them, I couldn't whittle it down to say 2 or 3 now, where I say if you back these 3 at 25, you get good value. I think maybe sit tight, hold fire on the Albert Bartlett. Do we reckon that's fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Brave Man's game is ahead in the market at 16-1, and we know he's going for the Ballymore. He's not going to go here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So there probably is a little bit of value to be had somewhere if you can pinpoint who's going where. But like I say, I mean, Holy Macapony for me is the one that's done enough to be considered for this sort of race. But because he's pulled up, it's now a massive price. So I would probably consider him.
Now, were you mentioning Escalade? What do you make of his head carriage? Does it, like I said, me and both liked him? It
annoys me. It does annoy me. It does bug me whether or not he's putting it all in. But
yeah,
I don't know what it is with him. I just know he's running over the wrong trip.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot of people, high profile tips as well, tipping him over 2 miles, and I just think you're fucking mad. Like, this horse definitely wants much further.
Yeah.
I think he's a bit of a battler, and the head carriage does annoy me a little bit, but I just think once he gets a little bit of a stamina test, I think he might start putting his head down and might start putting it all in, because I think that's where he really is going to be seen to best effect. I think 2 miles, I think he's just going round at 2 miles. I think the fact that he's done so well over 2 miles, including the champion bumper, it's just a testament to his ability, really, rather than anything else. I think if you give him a proper test, a proper battle, I think he'll put his head down. I think he'll stick it out.
Fair
enough. One that does need mention in the Albert Bartlett, which I was umming and ahhing whether to mention it at the top of the show, but I felt like if I did, it would lead people into maybe a full sense of confidence. But Make Good obviously did win at Cheltenham. That was when Ashtown Lad, I think it was, for Dan Skelton's, was 6-4 fav, didn't go so well. Dickie Johnson rode him. He was an impressive winner. He won by 7 lengths, I think, going away, and he was a strong staying thing. He's the sort of horse that when we get in towards Cheltenham, like a lot nearer the time, and you're going through pieces of form, he's going to tick the box that he has that 2 mile speed. He won over 3 miles. He's won over the course. It would end up ticking a lot of boxes. He's 25-1 with quite a few bookmakers. So he would be one that I'd probably, if I was advising someone to stick a bet on anything, I would say maybe just get him in your armoury, because his price is only going to get shorter. But
would you two be swayed more towards the Irish here, or would you be swayed more towards the English? For me personally, I feel like the English in every single department are miles behind.
Yeah,
agreed. Yeah.
So I'm Irish. There's nothing
but Irish horses, essentially.
I think so. But again, when we get to nearer the time, when you get to go through some of the horses, there might be some British horses that it's like I know we should be able to pick up on this stuff as it's going, but you'll end up looking at horses that something that might have been campaigned at 2 miles or 2.5 or just like 2 mile 2 that gets an entry in the Albert Bartlett, and all of a sudden you think, hang on a minute, they're going to step this up to 3 mile now. Then you go back and look at maybe it's bumper form or what it's done this season, and you go look in the breeding, and all of a sudden you think, actually, to be fair, if that horse has been able to do all of that over 2 miles, and it probably does need a trip, all of a sudden it makes it like it might be a 130 horse, and you start thinking to yourself, actually, if it was the trip that was the issue, this could end up being like £10 better over further. So
I get that. For me, the English horses, when they go to the Albert Bartlett, it's more of an afterthought for me personally. Whereas the Irish horses, they know they're going to run him over 2 miles. They know they're probably not going to be good enough. They know they're going to hope to finish behind decent horses that will run well in the Supreme and the Ballymore. And then they know that when they step them up, they're going to have a little bit more to offer. Whereas I think the English horses, the likes of like Do You Know, for instance, of Kim Bailey's, I think they genuinely thought that was a Ballymore horse, or they genuinely thought that was a 2.5 miler. And then when it comes to the fact that they're not good enough, they then ultimately go for the Albert Bartlett because they think they might be able to grind it out because they've got a little bit of 2.5 mile form.
Yeah, that's fair, and he is one of the horses that would be that type of horse. And you are right; it would end up like potentially being an afterthought. But last year's was not a freak renewal, but last year's was a very good renewal of the Albert Bartlett. And we've obviously had it with Manila Indo when that won it as well. Admittedly, it was a big price when it did it, but you do like. I love the race because I feel like you can pick some stuff at bigger prices. I love the fact that it is like a lesser quality one. The Supreme's the one that people want to be winning, really, and then maybe the Ballymore second. This is like an afterthought. And then when it gets to years like this where it becomes after 40, there might be a horse that just its speed or just its ability will get it away. And then that's again where it draws all the way back down to that 2 mile pace. Like, does he know? Well, I think, well, I don't know for definite, but I would think, depends on what the ground comes up as. If the ground was quick enough, I think they might think Albert Bartlett because they might get away with the extra few furlongs. If it was a bit slower, I think they'd just try and take on Brave Man's Game again. Like, I think he might go Ballymore, but he would be interesting. But there will definitely be some other novices that have run over the season that it ends up being a bit of that afterthought. But they'll have the ability that they've shown over 2 miles that they then flourish when they go in the 3 mile division.
And it always works out well as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, and it does. And the thing is with the Irish ones, they're definitely ahead, but there still isn't any like real standout Irish contender at the moment. So there will definitely be some stuff. There'll be some horses that will come out in the next few weeks that'll do stuff. The race that like there's Alaho went in and Manila Indo beat him. That's run like in February, I think, or like definitely towards the end of this month. So there's still a couple of like more key trials that will come in. They're the sort of races where you want to look at the entries for those 2 mile 6s, those 2 mile 7 races over in Ireland. And you'll see, we're saying here that they're 20 to 1 bar. You'll get horses that will go off 5 to 4 fav in those races that are 40 to 1, 50 to 1 for the Albert Bartlett. And they just become like auto bets, if anything, because you know they're going to run well. Alaho before that race, when he beat Manila Indo, they were both like 40 to 1 before him. Manila Indo went out to 50s. And then when you look at how Manila Indo had to do the donkey work, that stayed 50s for the Albert Bartlett. So you can end up getting horses that are beat that maybe can still be value after. But
yeah, Matt,
is there
any chance that Bob Ollinger goes for this race rather than the Ballymore? Because the reason I ask is because they're talking about the 2 mile 6 race at the Dublin Festival.
Yeah.
But is there any chance that if he goes for that 2 mile 6 race at the festival, that he comes in here? He's a 20 to 1 shot in here. There's very little at the top of the market. We know Brave Man's game's not going. So is there any chance that he comes in here?
I reckon there is.
I think they think he's too classic. I think that that speed with Fernie Hollow just makes him think that I think he's probably more inclined to drop back than go up, to be honest with you.
But do the pair of you, let me just ask you, do you find it strange that a horse like Bob Ollinger can have 3 entries in terms of the Supreme, the Ballymore and the Albert Bartlett? Do you think that when it comes to the Cheltenham Festival, is it the best horse at the best trip, or is it in terms of, is it rare that a horse can run it in all 3 events and have a fair chance?
It is rare. Bells Hill was one a few years ago when they swapped him and Yorkhill around. But Bells Hill was supposed to be going Albert Bartlett, and they ended up running it in the Supreme, and he was like miles back in the Supreme. But you do get lots of horses that have those multiple entries that, like on paper, could go anywhere. Ngolo's one of those. May not have the class to go and win, but Ngolo, you could stick him 2 miles, 2.5 or 3 miles, and I think you could make a bit of a case for him.
Envoy could have done any.
Yeah.
Well, not many. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even if you go back to bloody Envoy Land, like he's obviously different class, but he would have won any of those trips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a strange. The Albert Bartlett in January is a strange anti-post market. It's always very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Did we mention Statler?
I mentioned him briefly.
Yeah.
So that's as much as it is, isn't it? Much for much.
That's just so he can crop that, Matt. It's just so he can crop it and just say, I mentioned it briefly when he wins.